Welcome to the Just Women Sports Podcast, where we talk to the biggest athletes in the world about the untold stories behind their success. I'm Kelley O'Hara, and my guest today is April Ross. April, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
First, thanks for getting on. Where are we finding you today?
I am in Costa Mesa. I'm pretty much sheltering in place still. The rates are rising of coronavirus all around us. So I'm trying to stay as safe as possible. We have some events coming up in Long Beach, California in a couple of weeks. So don't want to risk anything before then for sure. So hanging out at my house and then training in LA a little bit.
In the start, like how long were you off of the sand for?
Oh my goodness. I was off the sand for probably the longest period of time since I started playing volleyball.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I kept thinking it was just one more week, and then it ended up being 3 months, I think, that I was off the sand, which even every year we take an off season that's about, I'd say a month long, off the sand, just for mainly our mentalities, our brains. But 3 months is so long. So that first day back was pretty brutal. In a way, though, it was kind of nice because I've never done that before in my whole career. And I was really fired up after all that time off to come back,
For sure. Yeah, I felt the same way. It actually made me feel a little bit better about retirement. I was like, okay, I still am really into soccer and I still really want to be playing, but there's life outside of playing every day. And I really enjoyed it. So
it totally put things into perspective. Oh my gosh, there's other things I enjoy doing besides playing volleyball and training at 150% every day. And I finally got to experience what not being exhausted felt like.
Right?
I didn't realize how tired I was all the time. It just became so normal. And once after about 3 weeks, I was kind of like, oh my goodness, I feel refreshed. I have energy to get back to emails and say yes to things that aren't volleyball and training. So that was nice. And I was the same way. I was kind of like, oh, I can see what my life, I could see that my life is purposeful and meaningful without my sport in it. So I'm like you, I want to keep playing for as long as I can, but I don't fear retirement anymore.
That's awesome. Yeah, exactly the same. And it was kind of it was a mini retirement in a sense, a pause, and it gave you this look into the future. But like you said, volleyball still is your life. So I want to go back to where it all started. You grew up in Newport Beach, California. So how did you first get into volleyball? Was it just because of where you lived and that's what people did, or what first got you into the sport?
Well, growing up, I wanted to be where you are right now. Soccer was my number one and I loved it. I played club and never wanted to quit. And for one reason or another, my club team folded, and it was I didn't have a clear different direction to take in soccer. And it was right at the end of 8th grade, I believe, and all my friends were playing volleyball and I had no interest in volleyball. I was like, just soccer. And my dad, I think, saw that I was tall and decently athletic and thought I could be good at it. So he literally didn't drag me, but kind of made me go to this volleyball tryout for club volleyball. And I was just sure I was going to hate it. And after the tryout, I was like, oh my gosh, this is for me. It just took the one time trying it, being in there, and I was terrible, but kind of immediately fell in love with volleyball right away.
Why do you think that you didn't think you were going to like it? And then what about it made you be like, I love this? Or is it just a feeling?
I think I loved the atmosphere a lot. A lot of the girls, I wasn't playing soccer with the girls at my high school, and a lot of the girls at my high school that were going to my high school were in this club volleyball program. And so I think that was kind of fun for me to be around them and see how that could be a bonding experience. But also I could just see how much better I could get. And I obviously was not the best soccer player in the world, but I don't think I saw like the opportunities to improve like I did in volleyball. And maybe it was just because it was my first day and I was so bad, but I was just like, I don't know, like this is a challenge that I think I'm gonna really like. So I just came back the next day.
That's really cool, especially for being so young and not being good at something and wanting to pursue it for that reason.
Yeah, like I never really worried about results or like how good I was or bad I was. I just played because I loved it for the most part. And like every little thing that kind of like clicked for me, it was this huge validation. Like I worked so hard and it clicked. And I can like remember those moments just looking back. And that was super motivating for me. Like, okay, now what's the next step and what's the next thing that I can kind of master and get to click. And I still feel like that to this day. I'm like, okay, I'm still waiting for this one thing to click, you know, like that's why I'm still playing.
Yeah, we've on another episode, we talked about like chasing perfection. I feel like so many athletes, especially professional athletes, that's what brings us back day after day, because you're never going to be perfect, but we all want to be, because that's like ingrained in us. So, and it sounds like that is the case for you. You didn't start club volleyball. You didn't play volleyball till 8th grade, and you end up being the number 1 recruit in the country going into college. That's a big jump from like entering the sport, and then being the number 1 recruit. What was that like for you? When did you realize that you had it and could go beyond just playing club volleyball in high school?
I don't know if I ever realized I had it until I was playing beach volleyball. But like I said, I kind of just played because I loved playing. I didn't think that I was good enough to get a scholarship until that first letter rolled in, like my junior year. Because back when I played, I don't think you got letters until you were a junior or something. And so one of the things that I can point to as kind of like a linchpin in my career was going into high school as a freshman. And I'm not over exaggerating this. Like I was terrible. There's a thing called a 1. So I was a middle blocker, and you have, like at the basic level, you have to be able to run a 1. I could not run a 1. And the volleyball team at my high school was pretty good. And you try out for all the different teams, fresh off JV and varsity. And so I'm just going into this tryout with my friends, thinking I'm gonna make fresh off. And I got taken on the varsity. I was the only freshman taken on the varsity team. And I played like I was a starter. And I have watched those videos. I had no business being on the varsity team. But my coach saw something, I guess, some potential. And so the fact that I got to play on varsity that year and be with all the seniors and juniors, and I learned so much, I feel like that was a huge step for me, and just put me in a position to have the success that I've had. So every time I see my high school coach, I thank him for taking me on varsity that year. But I don't know, I just worked really, really hard. The one thing that my parents always told me was, it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter the results, it matters what you bring to the court and how much effort you put into it and your attitude. And if you give it 150%, that's all you can do. And so that was like my whole mentality in high school.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I can't imagine you being terrible as a freshman and still making varsity. You obviously had something, and like you said, the coach saw something special in you.
Yeah. I mean, I never got set. I don't know how much you know about volleyball, but like to go through the front row and not get set one time is like, you are terrible. Like, what are you doing on the court? And I like never got set. played in the back row. I could play defense a little bit. So that was like my saving grace.
Or what is getting set? Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so there's 3 hitters in the front row and you have your setter. And your setter decides of the 3 hitters who she wants to set to get a point, like every single play. And so she would set everyone else except for me. So I never got to hit the ball. So I would just kind of be there as a body and never got to hit the ball.
So
so it's kind of an insult. Huh?
You were a decoy?
I was a decoy. Yes, exactly.
And also what is running a 1?
Running a 1 it's the fastest set in volleyball. So the middle blocker goes straight to the setter, and the set is literally like half a foot to a foot high. So it's really quick, and you kind of like hit the ball right out of the setter's hands. So it takes a lot of hand-eye coordination, rhythm, timing, all that stuff that like a really lanky, uncoordinated freshman me could not do. And it's really important because it holds the other team's blockers in the middle. So if the setter sets to the outside, like a longer set, the middle blocker has a harder time getting out there to block the ball. So I literally was a decoy. I would get up and just jump and hope to hold the middle blocker on the other side.
Interesting. So I obviously have watched a lot. I love watching volleyball. I find it so exciting. It's like so fast paced and so much happening and the points happen. But I know nothing. Like the fact
it's hard to follow. If you don't play it and like you don't understand the rules, I think it's kind of hard to follow.
I think it's easy in the sense of like when the ball hits the ground, like how the points work, but to hear the nuances of the technical aspect of like, oh, you're going to set this a foot or half a foot above. I never knew that. I was just like, oh, they just put it in the air and then they hit it to the other side. That's learn something new every day. So you're a freshman on varsity. You obviously stay on varsity your entire time in high school. You get your first letter from a college. I think it's September 1st, junior year, because that was what it was for me.
Okay.
Still. So, and I remember that time because it was just, and for me, I was kind of the same way. I didn't know if I would go, I didn't even think about going to college for soccer really until the letters started to roll in. And so how did you decide on USC?
Oh, that's kind of interesting. So my aunt and uncle went to UCLA. My high school coach was a big UCLA fan, and like everyone, my next door neighbors who we were best friends with, UCLA fans, like everyone was pushing me to go to UCLA. And I honestly thought like, that's, I'll probably go to UCLA. I went and visited the campus, and it was just huge. I felt like it's like swallowed me up. And honestly, one of the biggest turnoffs was the girls were taking me around. It was an unofficial visit. I didn't go on any official visits. I went on an unofficial. The girls were taking me and my mom around, and they were talking about hazing the freshmen and what they were going to do to haze the freshmen this year. And I didn't drink, and it terrified me. And I was like, I don't want this. Like it totally scared me. And so I was really turned off by UCLA after that. And USC was nowhere on my radar. I don't know, like it's very polarizing, right? Like you're either UCLA and hate USC or vice versa. And so I kind of was like,
or you're standing, you hate both.
Yeah. So USC was not an option for me until their coach, Jarrett Elliott, came. Like I took home visits from a lot of different colleges. So Jarrett came and sat at my kitchen table and just like literally sold us on USC just to come for a visit. So I came for a visit. It was the complete opposite experience as UCLA. It's like smaller campus. The girls had done their research. Like you could tell they made me feel really at home and said all the right things. And it just felt so much more like a family. And it was just like a really good fit. I could tell it was a really good fit. And I had no idea how they were at volleyball. I didn't know. Oh yeah, no idea. didn't know how they had done in the past years, who else they were looking at for recruiting, who was going to be on the team. I was just like, this feels right. And I did want to go to a good academic school. And I loved the idea of the alumni network in Southern California, because I knew that I always wanted to stay in SoCal. And so that's kind of why I chose SC. Luckily, we got some amazing recruits my same year and did really well.
Did you commit before those amazing recruits did, or did they commit after you had committed? Like, you were number one, so obviously you clearly had pool, and you probably got other girls that maybe didn't think about USC to end up there.
Well, I was really naive, obviously, because of everything I've already said, but I didn't know that like people were waiting on me to commit, and I didn't even know how many scholarships they had to give. And so I was just taking my time. I didn't commit until my senior year. And then, so one girl had committed before because like she just knew that that's what she wanted to do. And then 4 other girls committed after me. And I think like 2 of them were 2 other top recruits in the country.
Cool.
And once we got there, it like came up in conversation at some point. They were like, we were just waiting to see if you would commit or not. It took so long.
You were oblivious. You had no reason to
oblivious.
Be number one. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone else does. I'm doing what I'm going to do. So you didn't know USC's track record when you went there as a freshman. You committed based on a feeling at home, feeling welcomed. I love that. And I was kind of the same way with Stanford. I went, and it was the one place where I visited where I was like, this feels like a family to me. And then there was obviously all the other things, academics, that sort of thing. But you show up on campus freshman year, and you guys go, you do pretty well freshman year, sophomore year, but then you end up junior year going back-to-back national championships. So how do you explain that progression? What was that like? Did you come from I guess this is multiple questions. Did you come from a high school that was really good, or were you guys like did well, whatever, but you were the best? So it wasn't a weird transition of like winning to not winning? Or did you go in and it was like you helped build this program?
College for me was totally different than high school. Like, we were successful in high school, but college was just a whole nother game for me. And the same thing kind of happened. Like, I felt I didn't feel as fish out of water my freshman year as I did in high school, but I still felt like all the upperclassmen were way better than I was. But I ended up earning a starting spot and played every match, and that was
I feel like this is becoming
I know, but I remember we were in Texas, we were playing at this tournament, and I go into the gym thinking like, I'm just going to be sitting on the bench. I'm not nervous or anything because I didn't think I was going to play at all. And then the next thing I know, I'm in the starting lineup, and I can still remember the very first time I got set in college and I got a kill, and I was like so excited that I got 1 kill. But yeah, no, it was a confidence booster, and huge experience on my way of all of us creating the teams that won our national championships. But the thing that made I think, getting better, all that experience was huge leading into my junior and senior years, but also, I struggled balancing school and social life and all that stuff. And I think that negatively impacted my performance on the court my junior and sophomore year. I lost my mom to breast cancer my sophomore year before season. So that obviously had a huge impact on me. I struggled a lot after that. And I didn't put the two together. You're just in it, you're surviving, and you're doing the best that you can. And then looking back, it was like, oh, I was, grieving and having a hard time. And it showed in my school and everything else in volleyball. And I had kind of like a come to Jesus moment over winter break my sophomore year when I got my grades. And we had just lost in the final four. I sprained my ankle. Pretty sure I had like I was exhausted. I was seeing stars, all this stuff. I got my grades. It was it was point oh something away from being like disqualified from being able to play volleyball again. Which it was set by the volleyball team. I think it was like 2.0 something, which is like not great. Like that's pretty bad. And I have always held, myself to some pretty high expectations in school and everything. And so I just sat there being like, what am I doing with my life? And like, would my mom want this for me? Would she be proud of me in the wake of her death for acting how I'm acting and doing what I'm doing? And it's just like, no, like I gotta turn this ship around and be more disciplined. And how am I going to get to the point where she would be proud of me? And so I changed a lot of things, and it really paid off. And I do feel like it contributed a lot to our success, or my success, junior and senior year.
That's an amazing story, and I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm sure your mom is so proud of you. And
it's a huge motivating factor, and I feel like she's with me and was with me back then. And yeah, it's, it sucks and it's unfortunate, and but I can't bring her back. All I can do is kind of do what I think she would want me to do.
For sure. And I feel like your success is a testament to her moving forward, which is a beautiful thing. So you have this, life-changing moment, and that obviously impacted you going forward. Senior year or junior year, you guys go undefeated to win national championship.
So this is a fun story for you, maybe. We, junior year, our only loss was to Stanford, and then we avenged that loss in the finals by beating them to win the national championship. And then my senior year, we went undefeated.
Wow. Yeah. So my senior year at Stanford, we went undefeated, and then we lost in the national championship to UNC. So I'm thankful that you had an undefeated season and capped it off nice. And you ended your college career with an undefeated season, national championship. You're a 4-time All-American. What was your mindset leaving college? Did you know you wanted to play professionally? Was that something you thought about during college, or did it just kind of fall into place? Because I know you ended up in Puerto Rico, but how did that all happen?
I didn't have plans for after college. I think in that time of my life, I was very go with the flow and like follow your heart and let's just see what happens. I had a couple teammates who had played in Puerto Rico for their like junior years in their league, because it's a different kind of, like, it's a professional league, but you can still play in it as an amateur and not take money. And you can't talk to scouts or teams while you're in college. So I didn't know what my options really were. My coach, when I was done, like at USC, when I was done competing in NCAA, he was like, oh, okay, a couple of these teams in Puerto Rico are interested in you. Would you be interested in playing down there? And I, thought, yeah, I'll go down, make some money off of all this time I've put into volleyball. And I ended up skipping my spring semester, my senior year, to go down and play. Came back, finished like summer school, and then went back 3 more times. Yeah, it was a good decision. It wasn't for me really, the indoor pro life. I fell out of love with it pretty quick, but I'm glad I did it.
So just so people know, the professional season in Puerto Rico was only a couple months long. You said it was in the spring.
So
you'd go for only months and then come home.
Yeah, it was like January through April if you did well, which is so short. Normally professional indoor volleyball is a 9-month season. So we go to Europe or Russia or China. and it's 9 months, and people do that for like 10 years, and it blows my mind. And I just could not do that. I was, I missed my friends, my family way too much. And 4 months I was, bordering on depression, like just being by myself. And I just needed to come home, and I ended up hating it, like just the lifestyle.
But you did it. You said you went back a couple years. You did it 4 years?
Yeah, I actually had I did it 3 years. I had, for the league, I had a really good contract. And I just felt like I'm giving myself a really good jumping off point by making some money. And I kind of thought that I would always go back to school and get a graduate degree. So I wanted to save up for that.
What did you want a graduate degree in?
I either wanted to do, I really wanted to do law school. Wanted to go back for law school. I just don't know. I've always been a very competitive person, and I would get into debates with my friends all the time. And I just was like, I feel like I'd be a good lawyer. I could go to trial and argue my case and be really good at it.
Professional arguer. That's what lawyers are.
Yeah. But I wanted to have an impact. I actually remember now, I wanted to be an environmental lawyer.
Awesome. What did you study in college?
I did, this goes back to like not being super on it my freshman or sophomore year, but I wanted to do business or journalism, and I didn't know that you needed a certain GPA to get into the business or journalism school, and because of everything that happened, I did not have the GPA to get into those schools. So I did international relations with a minor in marketing.
Very cool.
Which was really interesting to me. Like, I loved it. But
yeah, that's awesome. So you went to Puerto Rico these 3 years. The season was only a couple months. Outside of the season, you're back at home training on your own. Like, how were you handling? Because I know for us with our league, with NWSL, it's only sometimes 6 months. Now it's kind of led into being longer, 7 or 8. But there's that time period where you have to, if you don't have an organized league or team to be playing on, you have to be training somehow. So how did you work around that? What did you do? Or were you just kind of chilling and then got ready right before you went back to Puerto Rico?
Well, I hated it every time I went down there. So after my first season, I was like, I'm never going back. And I just kind of chilled. And I don't think I did. Oh, I had to go back to summer school. So I was finishing up my school at SC. But can't remember really working out or doing much. And then I got offered another contract to go back the next year. And so I showed up about 15 pounds overweight and did not have the best season and hated it. And but leaving the second year, I think they said they wanted to bring me back again. And I was like, okay, I can do this one more time. And then I went home and trained on my own, got a gym membership and stuff. And it was a weird time looking back. I feel so supported and organized now with USA Volleyball, and I have resources and physical therapists. And when I was doing the Puerto Rico thing, it was I was totally on my own. I was my own gym membership. I never got physical therapy. If I needed something, I had to figure it out all on my own. I did pretty well, but it was just night and day to where I am now.
We have similar experiences in that. And it is interesting how, as you go through your professional career, if you don't have those things in the beginning, how much you value them later on and how much it becomes a priority, because it's just these are necessary tools for my success. You need the right support system for you to be successful. You obviously did fine, but it does make it a lot easier when you have somebody and you have all those different things, because people don't realize you have to go get a regular gym membership, stuff like that, to stay active, stay ready.
Write your own programs. You have to, okay, I guess today I'll do squats, and tomorrow I'll do something else. But in a way, I think I don't know how you feel about it, but it seems like it's a little bit of a rite of passage. If you can be self-motivated for those years and, push through and figure it out on your own, then you're rewarded by more opportunities because you got through that period of time.
Yeah, no, it does. It did feel like it does, and it did feel like a rite of passage, but it's also like, man, if we could just make all of these environments better for everyone coming out of college, because I feel like so many female athletes come out of college and then they get into their professional environment and it's just subpar compared to what they were getting in their support systems in the universities. But you are right. You just kind of have to prevail.
I mean, I do think, at least in volleyball, there's a movement and an effort to bridge that gap now. And so like the domestic tour for beach volleyball is the AVP, and they have the AVP first and AVP next now. And it kind of creates this pipeline where there's somewhere to go and there's resources you can use to kind of at least inform yourself. Whereas back then there was nothing.
For sure. So you hated Puerto Rico, even though you went back 3 times. 3rd time's a charm. You were over it. Yeah. And you ended up transitioning. And I mean, people listening right now, obviously they know that you are a Olympic beach volleyball player, but you played indoors and then transitioned to beach. So how did that transition happen? And what was it like? Because I can't imagine I play regular soccer. There's also beach soccer.
I've seen beach soccer. That's fun.
I know, but it would be so much harder.
Yeah, it is. The sand is a game changer. I believe it's the hardest surface to play any kind of sport on. But when I was done in Puerto Rico, after my 3rd season down there, I went down there in pretty decent shape, but because I didn't know how to take care of myself. And so now that you know what getting set is, I was one of they get 2 foreign players per team in Puerto Rico, and so I was one of my team's foreign players. The other one was a defensive player, so I was really the only offensive foreign player. So I got set every single ball when I was in Puerto Rico. So by the end, my shoulder was like hanging on by a thread. I couldn't raise it higher than this, and then my knee was giving out on me. It hurt so bad. And so by the end I could like barely play a full match. So that made it even worse. And it was the most miserable I have been playing volleyball. So after that 3rd season, I was like, I am done. I am never going back. I'm done with volleyball. Like I hate volleyball. So I made a decision to kind of like quit completely. And I went home and got surgery on my knee. Once I was healed, I contacted my stepsister, who was a manager at the House of Blues at Disneyland. And I was like, hey, can you hook me up with a job as like a hostess or something? And so she gave me a job being a hostess at the House of Blues. I did that for about 3 months. And then by the end of that, my knee was like pretty healed. I actually, now I remember, I considered going back to Puerto Rico. I was like, I'm working at the House of Blues. Like, why would I not go back? And then I don't know if you know, do you know Holly Mcpeek? So Holly Mcpeek is like a legend in beach volleyball. And I had been in contact with her a little bit. She was trying to get me to come out onto the beach. And I'm like, kind of like, no, I don't know. I was going to go back to Puerto Rico. And she said, stay here and train on the beach and like just see how you do. And so she kind of convinced me to come out onto the beach and try it. And my my ex-teammate from USC, the indoor team, was already on the beach and she needed a partner. So she like convinced me to play with her. We gave it a go and we were pretty terrible. But again, I fell in love with the sport. Like it was so different. It was like walking into the gym as an 8th grader for my first time. And I was just like, I love this sport. Like, I just want to play it. No joke. I lost $15,000 my first year traveling around trying to like make the circuit. I made it into the main draw. So it's similar to tennis. Like you have to make the main draw to make any money. I made it into the main draw like 3 times maybe. And so, yeah, we were bad. I didn't know the terminology. It was probably like you trying to go out and play beach volleyball right now. You'd be like, what does that mean? That was like me. So yeah, I just like gave it a shot and fell in love with it. When
Holly, that was her name.
Holly, yeah.
She asked you to come play. Had you ever played beach volleyball before, even just for fun at the beach with friends?
Yes. So I played, my high school coach, I went to high school at Newport Harbor High. It's a couple miles from the beach. So my high school coach would, in the spring, would make us go to the beach and do like cross training down there by playing beach volleyball and conditioning and stuff in the sand. And those were like my least favorite days. I hated going down there. It's just, you feel like you're so used to being explosive and being good at something inside on the hard court, and then you go and try to do it on the sand, and it's like you're terrible. Like it's like you can't play volleyball, and I just hated that feeling and couldn't wait to get back into the gym. At SC, we're pretty close to the beach also, so my teammates would go down and play beach volleyball on the weekends, and I'd be like, no, I'm good. I'm just gonna hang out at school.
Oh my gosh. Again, so many themes I feel like that I'm picking up on with you. You say that you were terrible in your when you first started beach volleyball, but you won Rookie of the Year award for FIVB, which is like your International Federation for Volleyball, and the AVPs, which is Association of Volleyball Professionals, Rookie of the Year award. So you clearly were good.
Well, I wish I could see it from someone else's eyes, because I don't know where these things come from. Like, I swear it's just like, we think she has potential, so we're gonna like encourage her. I don't know.
Give her these awards and make her feel like she has a path in this.
Yeah, maybe. But I got AVP Rookie of the Year after, the year where I lost money playing. And then the next year I got the FIVB like Rookie of the Year or whatever. So my second year was much better than my first year. I will admit that. Like, I was successful my second year.
And what do you think made you successful? Just the practice, just being used to it and getting out and experiencing it? Or like, what was, I mean, it sounds like you go into something, you're like, I'm not very good, but I'm going to try. I like it. I'm excited about this challenge. And then you tackle it and you just keep progressing. So is that kind of what it was?
I do think I like I like challenge. I like feeling like there's a chance of me succeeding while being challenged. You know, like if it's too big of a challenge and I just feel beat down all the time, like I'm not going to like it. But if there's a glimmer of hope in there and I can chase that glimmer, I really like it. I think the second year, like my second season was definitely a lot of luck. And a little bit of me making a lot of me making hard, tough decisions and having tough conversations. So I knew that I needed to learn. I knew I needed to play with somebody, because me and my partner, my first year, we're both rookies, both, trying to figure it out. And I needed to play with somebody who could teach me, who knew the game a lot better than I did. And so I felt really strongly about that. I didn't know who I was going to play with, but and my teammate that I was playing with, I was good friends with. We won 2 national championships together at SC. And so I was terrified of telling her that I wanted to break up with her.
This is what I was excited to talk about, because I think it's such a fascinating aspect of the sport of volleyball, or at least beach volleyball. It's like, it's a team sport, but it's a team sport consisting of 2 people. And how do you go about, one, picking the partner, and then how do you go about breaking up with the partner?
Yeah, you don't have, like, the coach isn't the one that's like, you're going to play with her or we're going to separate you guys. It's like, you have to make those decisions. And we spent 24/7 together all summer, all season the last year. And so we're like really close, and I have to go break up with her. And she's in Hermosa and I'm in Orange County. And so I tell her I need to talk to her. I drive up to her house. We were sitting on her bed in her bedroom, and I'm like looking her in her eyes, and I'm like, I just really think we need to go our separate ways. I think it's going to be really good for us if we play with different people, thinking that I was doing it the best way I can, showing the most respect I can, and that she would see the benefit of us breaking up. But she definitely did not, and was very upset, and we didn't talk a lot after that. So that was a tough one.
Since?
Huh?
Have you reconciled since?
Not really. Like, if I see her, we're fine, you know, we'll chat and stuff, but we never really went back to being friends or anything. So that was a really tough decision, but necessary decision. And then I got together with a more veteran player, and we trained all off season, and we were ready to go into season. We were going to play together. We're going to play internationally together. And 2 weeks before the season, she let me know that she had to get back surgery. I had no clue up until that point that her back was really even that bad. And so she was going to have to miss the first couple tournaments at least. And she was asking me to kind of like wait for her, and she was going to come back as fast as she could. And I'm, you know, she's much older than me. I respect her a ton. And like, I'm just this newbie, and I'm kind of like, okay, sure. Yeah, I'll wait for you. But in the back of my head, I'm like, you know, I don't have it. Like, I just felt like this urgency, like I needed to play. I needed to get experience and like give it a go. And I don't even know how to like, this is such a complicated story. But so my partner that I had broken up with before this was playing with Jennifer Kessy, who I went to London with. So that was who she was going to play with. Kao had gone back to Puerto Rico, played professionally there. She was my first partner. She went to the playoffs, so she got stuck in Puerto Rico, and she wasn't going to be able to make it back for the first couple of tournaments. So I didn't have a partner. Jennifer Kessy didn't have a partner. And so I called Jen, and I was like, hey, Jen, what if we play the first couple of events together? Because Kao is in Puerto Rico, Nancy's hurt. And she's like, okay, we can do that. So we play together. We make the finals of the first tournament we play in together. And we're like, this isn't a fluke. Like, this is crazy that this is the first time we're playing together and we're in the finals. So after that, we kind of made this decision, we're going to stay together. And so I had to call my second ex-partner who just had back surgery and tell her that I was not going to play with her anymore and was going to stick with Jen. So
the amount of stress.
Oh my goodness. I
can't handle it. I don't think that sounds.
I can picture each conversation I had and how stressed out I was and how nervous I was to like have these conversations. But I'm also like so proud that I like embraced the challenge, took it head on, and like didn't shy away from these conversations and didn't take the easy route, and just kind of did what I felt in my heart was necessary to, I don't know, like do as best that I could.
Do you think that your ability to have these hard conversations and to evaluate objectively, I need to break up with this person, I need to move on, or, you know, I need to make these hard decisions. Do you think your ability to do that has allowed you to be as successful as you are? Like, do you think there's people out there who hang around with the same teammate because they don't want to have the hard conversation, and that has, you know, impacted their career in a negative way?
100%. Yeah. I think it's really easy to get caught up with a friendship, you know, because you do become really close with your partners and you don't want to, you know, hurt your partner. I think it's a double-edged sword because I do consider myself to be really loyal, and that's why these conversations are so tough to have. But I also view it as a business, and I know I have to make those tough calls. And I give it till the very last, till it's like clear that I have to make a jump, you know? And so you can change too often and you can not give it enough of a chance. And so I think I've been able to balance that really well, you know, give it as long as it needs to give it a chance. And then recognizing when it's time to move on and have those tough conversations.
I'm like so thankful I play on a team with 20 plus players and don't have to call somebody up and say, it's been fun, but we're going to go separate ways, man. So and much respect for being able to have those hard conversations. Cause like I said, that everyone knows those aren't easy, but obviously they're necessary, and have clearly impacted your career in a positive way. But you fell into teammates with Jennifer Kessy, and you guys, like you said, made it to the final of the first tournament. You guys ended up upsetting Carrie Walsh and Misty May Trainer in the AVP tournament in 2008, and they were currently number one in the world at the time. And that was what, right post Beijing in 2008. So they just.
I can't remember if it was before or after Beijing, but yeah, right around that time. It might have been right after. I think you might be right.
Yeah. So you guys upset them in that match. And you had just started playing together in 2008, you and Cassie.
We started in 2007, so it was our second season together.
Okay. So what was that match like? Like, was that kind of a defining moment for you in your career, and also for you two in your partnership, being like, okay, this is, we can be really successful, and like, we want to go the distance together?
Yeah, I think we had a good amount of success, but leading up to Beijing Olympics, we made a really strong run to actually qualify, and we did well internationally. It was more against the American teams that we were having trouble. We ended up the third American team, so 2 U.S. teams can go to the Olympics if you're in the top 15 in the world. And so I think our top 2 were like number 1 in the world and number 5 in the world, and Jen and I were number 6 in the world. So we missed out by like 1 spot to go. And so it was like kind of finding our success among the American teams that was crucial. And so, yeah, once we were able to, beat Misty and Carrie in that match, it was kind of like, okay, it was validation. We're on the right path. We committed to making a lot of changes once we didn't qualify for Beijing. And so we're making this big push to get better before London. And I think that was a huge confidence booster in that way.
What were some of the changes that you guys realized you had to make?
After we didn't qualify for Beijing, we needed to get on a better nutrition plan. We needed to change our lifting program. We needed to get a more skilled coach. So I think those were the biggest things we changed. We utilized a lot more of the USOPC back then, but USOPC now programs to help us plan and make sure we're on the right track. We just got a lot more organized and I think serious, because leading up to 2008, we were still trying, it was shocking to us that we were as successful as we were. So we were just kind of figuring it out as we went. And then after, all of that, we were like, okay, we really do have a shot here if we take it seriously. So we adjusted those things and it made a huge difference.
Yeah. So you made those changes, which, aren't easy changes. And the fact that you guys had to, as 2 of you, decide that, as opposed to a coach or, a GM making these decisions for you. And it clearly pays off, because you end up in the gold medal match in the 2012 Olympics in London. You're up against Carrie and Misty. And I mean, this is your first Olympics. So are you freaking out because it's your first Olympics? I was freaking out. And then you find yourself, you're in the gold medal match, but you're facing off against another American. And I guess that happens in multiple sports in the Olympics, but what is that like?
Yeah, that was so surreal to find ourselves in the finals of the Olympics. I remember going in to London, being so stoked to be there. Being at the Olympics is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I really wasn't sure I was ever going to get here, just enjoying it. And I clearly had the thought that I just didn't want to get last place. I just wanted
theme. You're like, I'm terrible, but I end up going to the Olympics and being this amazing, successful.
I was just so nervous. I was like, if we don't get last place, I'm good. So we as we start going, I get a little bit more comfortable in front of the fans and in that atmosphere. And we start to get in a little bit of a groove. We end up getting a good draw and then a terrible draw, but overcoming that terrible draw and still gives me chills thinking about we ended up beating the number one team in the world in the semifinals to make the finals. That team had beat us the last 9 times in a row. And so the 10th time in the Olympics, we were able to beat them and make it to the finals. And then, yeah, the finals, I still have regrets about that, but it was an amazing experience. And then, you know, like just to know that for your country, like the 2 Americans were there, like I had a lot of pride for that.
Yeah, true. What do you regret about the match?
So you have this, like, I think Carrie and Misty, I watched Carrie and Misty before I ever played beach volleyball, and like they were my idols, you know, and like, you know, I just loved watching them, rooted for them in Beijing. You know, you just like, you see them having so much success, and then going in and you know, knowing what you're up against and having that kind of mentality. And, you know, you're telling yourself like, you know, we had beaten them several times. I knew that we could do that, but you just have that little part of your mentality where you're kind of like, you're the second American team, you know, they're the first American team. And then, so there was a slight doubt in there. And then I think I let the fatigue get to me a little bit. So we play every other day in the Olympics, and between the semis and the finals, it's back to back. And our match the night before was at like midnight or something. And so there wasn't a lot of recovery time, and it's not just physical, it's like so much emotional recovery that you need. And I just could not get up for it the way that I wanted to. And, you know, like, you're like, it's the finals of the Olympics and you're literally giving it everything you have. But I just, and maybe it was everything I possibly could have given, but looking back, I was like, I wish I would have just believed a little bit harder and tried a little bit harder. Like, I don't know what the answer would have been, but I wish I could play that match over again.
I know, it's the ones that you're like, I want that one back. And people don't realize, I love that you spoke to the emotional drain that is the Olympics, because in the Olympics and the World Cup, you're on a high every time you win, but then you have to get yourself back down so that you can get high again. But you're never like, it's never over until it's totally over. So it's just this,
can't turn it off.
Yeah. And people are like, what do you mean you can't get up for an Olympic final? Like, you've waited your whole life for this. And it's just, I have a specific memory of the last World Cup before we played Spain. I was like, man, I'm just not in the right headspace, like emotionally, for this game. And sometimes it's just impossible to get there. Like, you can, but you're never, you know, you don't get maybe where you need to be. And that is such a big aspect of winning, especially in big games.
Yeah, I think I do feel like I learned my lesson in London and applied it to Rio. But I think knowing your scale and like what emotionally on fire looks like for you, and you know, sometimes you're doing everything you can to get there, but you literally can only get to like here out of here. But going into Rio, I was kind of like, I don't care what it takes, how I feel, what's going on, like, I'm going to get there. And I feel like I was able to do that.
Yeah, you had experience under your belt. But before you get to Rio, you lose, you end up, it's losing, but you still get a silver medal in, you know, your first Olympics, which you just didn't want to get last place. So I would say that's a success in your book and anyone's book. You come out of the Olympics, and in 2013, which Olympics were 2013, you end up becoming partners with Carrie Walsh. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? Another hard conversation?
That conversation wasn't as hard because I knew that Jen wanted to start a family. So she was going to have to take some time off at some point. She wanted to play a little bit after London. And Carrie actually had a baby right after London. So she was out kind of the first year. Jen was out the second year. So I played the first year with Jen, and then we kind of parted ways, and I got together with Carrie. But Carrie had made a couple of comments about possibly wanting to play together. So I knew that she was interested. And then before too much time passed after London, I was like, I just have to make sure she's serious. And so like I sent her an email being like, I know you've mentioned this, but I'm serious about playing with you if you want to play. She's like, yeah, it was like the most casual conversation with her. She was like, yeah, let's give it a go.
I feel like okay. The type of person she is, she's just like so easygoing and is like, just an easy, calm personality.
She like knows what she wants. She's like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's just do it. I'm like, okay.
So basically volleyball is like a lot of sliding into DMs kind of when you
It totally is.
That is so funny. I feel that way about this podcast. I've slid into a lot of DMs, which I've never done in the past before. Okay. So you end up with Carrie because it works out.
It totally works out. Yeah.
And how was the transition from playing with Jennifer to then playing with Carrie? And when do you guys feel like you started to hit your groove? And like, did you feel right off the bat, oh, this is going to work, we're going to be successful? Or was it like a transition period?
Well, so I feel like Jen and I kind of came up together, and we were, she had played a lot longer and she was definitely the veteran player, but like our success was all kind of tied together. And then Carrie, but getting with Carrie, like has 3 gold medals at this point, like like I said, I grew up, I'm not that much younger than she is, but like before I got out to play, like, I was watching her, I was learning from her, I was reading her blogs, like what's Carrie doing, and so I was really nervous to play with her. And I remember our first event was in Santa Barbara, and I just had so many nerves. We ended up winning the tournament, and we could both tell that like we were good together. Like this is obvious. Like it was pretty obvious that I feel like that we should play together. And she felt the same way. But I'd say the whole time, there was always a feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm playing with Carrie Walsh. Like I got to live up to that. And it was a really big growing experience for me. And it really made me play my best all the time.
Did you express that to her? Like, hey, I think you're amazing and I'm a little intimidated, like just letting you know? Or did you just internalize that and deal with it yourself?
I definitely just internalized that. Now that you're saying that, I'm like, maybe I should have had that conversation with her.
Maybe.
I like didn't want to, I don't know what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to like put that on her in any way, like I just thought it was my duty and my responsibility to kind of like rise to the occasion.
That makes sense. I feel like in team sports, people feel that way, but there's a ton of veterans and like there's multiple rookies and there's lots of players on the team, but it's just like you and this other person. And I still to this day find it fascinating that the like relationship interaction of 2 people on a team trying to win and like the experiences and everything that comes with it, and then figuring out how like you fit together.
Yeah. But I get that. And I get that question like all the time. Like, how do you make sure you and your teammate have chemistry, and how do you form a good partnership with somebody? And honestly, it's like, I don't really know. It's the same way you would form a friendship with someone. I don't know, but like there's more to it because you have to make it work.
There's a lot on the line besides just like, being friends.
Yeah.
So what were your expectations going into 2016 together and individually?
Well, together we definitely wanted to get the gold medal. Individually, we both wanted to get the gold medal. I think that was kind of all there was to it at that point. And we felt, super prepared and, like we could do it. And I wanted to learn, like I said, from my London experience where I went in being like, I just don't want to get last place. And so I went, huh?
But I hope you didn't tell Carrie that.
Oh no, I didn't tell her that. But I went in to Rio being like, okay, my expectation here is gold medal or bust, you know? And so I have blinders on, didn't do much of the fun stuff. I didn't go to many houses. I didn't hang out with my family very much. I was like, we're here to win. And yeah, I don't know which mentality was better, you know, like the London one or the Rio one. Another thing to note that was really tough for my partnership with Carrie was she had shoulder surgery like 2 years out from the Olympics. And so that was a bonding experience, and I think made us better, but it was still a crazy thing to go through. And yeah, I think she was fully rehabbed like February before the Olympics,
which is a tight timeline leading up to any sort of major event in the sports world. So you don't want to get last. You want to win. Like, you don't want to get last, but this time you want to win. And you end up, you guys end up losing in the semifinals. You end up in the bronze medal match. You said you had blinders on and winning was all you could think about. How did you, and again, like you talked about in London, you won the semis and then you had to get up for the finals for the gold medal match. How is it different to lose in the semis and then have to get up for the bronze medal match? Do you feel like that was almost easier to do because you had a letdown and you're like, I need to, you know,
avenge
win
that
now?
Yeah. I think definitely. And yeah, it was so devastating to lose that semifinal, and you know, neither one of us got more than 2 hours of sleep the night before. And it, like I said, it's back to back, the semis and the finals, so it's not like, oh, you have another day to recover. So we were exhausted and emotionally just depleted, and like I wanted to not have to try, like for sure. Trying to get emotionally up and physically up felt like the hardest thing in the world at that point. But then there was also this desperation, like I am not leaving here without a medal. You know, like there's such a difference between 4th and 3rd place at the Olympics. And I can remember starting the match, think like a little bit like the finals in London, like I'm emotionally drained. Physically, I don't feel great. And I immediately kind of snapped myself out of that. I'm like, we are not having a repeat of, you know, the final match in London. Like, I don't care how exhausted I am afterwards. I don't care what happens. Like, if I pass out, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to figure out how to get up for this. And I think it was one of the best matches I've ever had in my career after that.
I remember watching that match, and it was super exciting. It was awesome. And it's interesting you say you had a feeling of desperation, because it, like, you're just like, oh my God, I have to get something out of this experience. Like, I need a medal.
Yeah. And it's something I've learned over the years, and it's really important to be aware of, is you get into like a final and of that magnitude. And it's like, especially in London, where, you know, I just didn't want to get last place. And it's like, we are guaranteed a medal. You feel like you've kind of already won in a certain respect, you know? And so to have that desperation was hard. And it just naturally occurred for the bronze medal match. And so I think taking that feeling and hopefully being able to apply it to a final would be the perfect situation.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting in the Olympics how, like, you win the semis. It's almost like if you win the semis, you're good, you know, like, you know, you're getting a medal. Obviously everybody wants gold, but it is an interesting thing, the pressure that goes into a semifinal match, just because you know that, okay, at least I get something out of this if I win.
Yeah.
But okay, so you guys win bronze, amazing. And you end up parting ways in 2017. Another breakup in the life of April Ross. How did that come about? What was that like? What went into that decision? And you're now with Alex Kleinman. So was that part of it? Were you like, oh, I'm ready to go here? Or walk me through that.
Yeah. So 2017, or 2016, we were kind of like figuring things out. And I was kind of under the mentality of like, this was, like I needed some time to just, I needed a break, and I needed to be away from volleyball and like have some fun and kind of refresh mentally. And I think Carrie was a little bit more like gung-ho, like let's keep going, blah, blah, blah. And so that disconnect was there a little bit. And then going into season, she was putting together like a different kind of league. I can't remember exactly how it rolled out now, but she was gonna partner with a different league and I don't think wanted us to sign the AVP contract. So it became a little bit of like, come with me and play this league. If you play AVP, I don't know if it's going to work out between us. And it was gut wrenching and like just so stressful. And I literally talked to, it was the toughest decision I've ever had to make, and like talked to everybody I could possibly talk to, and decided to sign the AVP contract. And she was going her way, and we were still gonna try and make it work. And I was gonna play with somebody else on the AVP, and we would play together internationally. And then just like as things developed, I think it became more clear to her that wasn't gonna work for her. And so in the end, she decided she didn't want to play together. And then I found a different partner, but it wasn't Alex right away. It was, I played with a friend for a couple of tournaments, and we actually won one of the AVPs, which was awesome. And then I played with Lauren Fendrick, who she's been around for a long time. We're good friends, played the season with her. And then after that, I was like, okay, I need to figure out like who my best option is to try and make the Tokyo Olympics. And that's when I got together with Alex.
And what was the reason behind thinking she's like, Alex is my best bet for winning in Tokyo? I read that you were a fan of the fact that Alex had been a successful indoor player. Was that a priority in a partner for you?
The priorities for me were that someone was going to like work as hard as I do. I wanted to know that like they were going to give it everything they have. I wanted somebody super competitive, and I knew that because of her success indoors, she was, she had to be competitive. I felt like she knew how to win. She had been in a lot of big matches, pressure situations, which was important. The reason I made the decision to go with Alex was based on intangibles for sure. It was the volleyball piece that, I didn't gamble on, but it was like, I feel like she has the potential and like she is going to get there. And so let's give it a go.
Is there an aspect of like, this player complements my style, so I want to play with them? Or is it kind of like, no, you just like, you're a competitor, you're going to win at all costs, that sort of thing? Like, which, I guess it's probably both when you're finding a partner, or is the complementing styles, is that super important?
I've never really thought about playing with somebody who necessarily complimented me. I don't know I just don't even know how I would evaluate that. I did know that I wanted a full-time blocker, because with Jen, we split blocks, so we both took turns blocking. Carrie and I actually started split blocking, and that was the whole goal to do it the whole time. But when she hurt her shoulder, she was a full-time blocker, and I became a full-time defender. And I actually liked that more. And so I knew I wanted a full-time blocker. I wanted to stay on the left side, and Alex was new, so she didn't really have a side. And I'm like, well, I could just, convince her to play on the right, and I could stay on the left. So it just, a couple of the puzzle pieces definitely fit together, and those are essential. You want someone who plays the opposite side of you, and, if you're a defender, you want a blocker. If you're a blocker, you need a defender. So that all worked out. But we sat down and had coffee, and we're just talking, and I was like, yeah, it seems like we really mesh. And now after 3 years, I can tell, that was a good indicator.
Well, you guys are the favorite to win gold going into 2020 Tokyo, or I guess 2021 now. What does that feel like being favored? Because I feel like your first Olympics was, I don't want to lose, or I don't want to get last. And then your second Olympics is I'm gold or bust. And now you have 2 under your belt. You have a new partner. This will be her first time playing beach volleyball in the Olympics.
First Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where's your head at? I mean, obviously it got pushed out. It's not happening until next year, but walk me through where you're at mentally.
Yeah. So I think I know and believe that Alex and I have a real shot at winning gold, and that is 100% the goal going into Tokyo. I know at the same time, like, we need to get a lot better before then. We need to become more consistent. And so those are, huge focuses for us. We're not complacent in any way, but I think going into the games, I definitely want to merge my two experiences. Like, I don't want to have no expectations, and I don't only want to be like, this is a complete failure if I don't, get the gold medal. I will have that goal and that expectation, but I think as much as I want to be focused, taking time to hang out with my family and taking time to go do certain things is very refreshing for my mentality. And I want to enjoy it. I want to have a great experience regardless of the results. So just trying to get those two to come together.
Yeah, we call it enjoying the journey, because you have an expectation, you have a goal in mind, but if you don't enjoy all the parts along the way, it makes, if you don't win, then it makes it all not worthwhile. So I think that's a good way to approach it. Okay. Before we wrap up, because I know we've had you for a while and I don't want to keep you too long, I have a couple big picture questions for you. Okay. The first one is hard work versus luck. How much of success is predicated on luck?
I definitely think you have to get lucky a few times. I think that's true for anything in life. There's a decent amount of luck, but you create the opportunities by how hard you work. You can put yourself in those positions by working really, really hard to possibly have good things happen. And so I don't think, you don't get half as lucky if you don't work super, super hard. So, if I had to put it in like percentage, a percentage, I'd say like maybe as much as 10% luck. I think, where I grew up, the high school I went to, the coaches I had, a lot of that was luck. And that really helped me get to where I am. But I think saying yes to opportunities and being brave helps you take advantage of that luck and make the most of it.
Very well said. All right, last one. We've already kind of touched on this, but you've accomplished so much already in your career. Where do you want to go next, and how do you keep pushing for that?
I'm grappling with where do I want to go next right now. I'm super focused on the current journey and doing well at Tokyo. I might want to keep playing and go for Paris. I mean, it's only another 3 years, so why not? I don't want to stop necessarily unless like I have to, and I, knock on wood, feel really healthy and still love playing, still love traveling. I don't know. I just want to, I do know going forward, I want to get involved in more causes, give back a little bit more than I have previously, and help the next generation and do good for the world. But I don't know exactly what I want to do next.
That's okay. Blank slate.
You go with the flow, find another challenge.
Sounds like that's gotten you pretty far already. So it's not a bad way to approach things. But all right, that's it. This was awesome and super enlightening, and you crack me up because you are like, I was terrible, and you've been to 2 Olympics, and you probably are going to win gold next Olympics, and you'll probably go and be like, just not good enough yet. But this is so fun.
Hard.
Yeah. So thank you for the time, and just for telling us your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. That was super fun talking to you. And I think I learned a little bit about myself because of the questions you asked. So I appreciate that.
I love hearing that. Well, good luck, and stay safe in California.
Okay, thanks. Same to you.